Hare Krishna, ISKCON Chennai welcomes you to another session of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we'll discuss the story of Jada Bharat. Before that, we will say prayers together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhatreshu नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः श्रीकृष्णचैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्दा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे. So we'll go to the background of the life of King Bharat. Here is a recap of Swayambhuva Manu, genealogy of Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu and Shatrupa, they had 5 children. The 2 sons were Priyavrata, Uttanapada, 3 daughters, Akuti, Prasuti, and Devahuti. Uttanapada had 2 sons, Dhruva Maharaj and Uttama. The Priyavrata, the elder son, he married Bharismati. They had a son called Agnidra and he married Purvachiti. Their son was Nabhi and uh, he married Meru Devi, whose son was Rishabdeva. Rishabdeva married Jayanti and they had 100 sons, of whom the eldest was Maharaj um, Bharat. So the reign of Maharaj Bharat, this planet has been called Bharata Varsha. Actually, in our Vedic history, we have 3 Bharats. One Bharat is Maharaj Bharat, the son of Rishabdeva. Another Bharat is the brother of Lord Ramachandra. And the third Bharat is the son of Dushyant and Shakuntala, who was the ascendant of Arjuna. So that is why we see that Lord Krishna he, addresses Arjuna as Bharata at certain places to remind him of his lineage. Now, this planet, our planet, was called Ajanabha earlier, named after Bharat Maharaj's grandfather, King Nabhi. But after Bharat's rule, it came to be known as Bharatavarsha. So, Bharat Maharaj, he married Panchajani, the daughter of Vishwarupa, and they had 5 sons. He ruled the whole world peacefully for several years and he increased his devotional activities unto Lord Vasudeva. Now Rishabhadeva, he had 100 sons. The eldest of them was Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj and 9 other siblings of his, the eldest siblings, they were all qualified Kshatriyas. Rishabhadeva's youngest of 9 children, they were all Mahabhagavatas who preached the Srimad Bhagavatam. And remaining 81 children of Rishabhadeva, they were qualified Brahmanas who taught the karma kanda activities Vedic from the Vedas. Now Rishabhadeva, before he departed to the forest, he gave a lot of instructions to his sons and he installed Bharat Maharaj as the king. Now, after receiving the instructions from Rishabhadeva, Bharat, he ruled the world very nicely. He was very kind to his citizens. He always took care of them. He always thought of their welfare. And he also did a lot of sacrifices for the welfare of the citizens. And he never forgot Lord Vasudeva. So, at the prime of his life, after ruling for several years, what he did was he renounced his wife, he gave up, he divided his kingdom amongst his 5 sons, he left his kingdom and he went to the place called Pulaha, known as Pulaha Ashrama. Pulaha Ashrama. So, this is situated in Haridwar, where the Gandaki river flows. And in this Gandaki river, you find a lot of Saligrama Shila. Now at Pulaha Ashrama, Maharaja Bharat, he lived alone. He offered food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is, whatever was available in the forest, fruits, roots, leaves, then water from the Gandaki river, he offered all that to the Supreme Lord and he kept worshipping the Lord and he was very satisfied because he was devoid of any material desires. So he was very happy chanting the names of the Lord, and he chanted the names from the hymns given in the Rig Veda. As he was doing this, his devotion to the Lord increased day by day, and he experienced many ecstatic symptoms. Which, when the devotee reaches the highest stage of devotion, he started to experience those ecstatic symptoms, and while worshipping the Lord, there's to be tears in his eyes, it's to keep falling on his cheeks. Such was the devotion of Bharat Maharaj. One day, after finishing his morning duties, while he was sitting there to chant, what happened was a female deer, a doe, came there to satisfy her thirst, the Gandaki river. And as she was drinking the water to quench her thirst, a loud roar was heard from, that is, a lion's roar was heard from somewhere nearby. And she got so agitated that in fear she leaped across the river. In the process, the child from the womb fell into the flowing water. The deer, being dejected and having lost connection with her flock and having lost her child, she entered a cave and she fell down dead. Now, all this was seen by King Bharat, and being a very compassionate person, he, as a true friend, he lifted the motherless deer, infant deer, from the waves and brought it to the ashram. Now, a devotee is very much compassionate towards another living entity, and in the same manner, King Bharat, when he saw that this infant baby without its mother was floating into the water, he carries the little one and he brings it to his ashram, and he becomes very attached to the deer. Now, this is what happens. We have seen in real life also. The little ones of any animal, they are very cute, and people are generally attracted to all the little ones. And you see nowadays, people, instead of interacting with the human beings, they prefer having a pet, because the pet animal, it reciprocates their love. A human being is always in search of love, and the love they get from these animals get so attached to it that they are not able to separate themselves from it. So this is what happened to King Bharat. But this is not the correct thing. This is, you may get pleasure in the material world by having a pet, but in the long run it is going to lead to your downfall, like how we will see from Raja Bharat's story. Now, even recently, there was a news. There's a man from MP who uh, he had written a will saying that 2 acres of land will be for his pet dog, which is only 6 months old. After he had a fight with his son. So this is a stage now. Like how he willfully he did this. Later he withdrew the will, but this is the condition in the present world. So why this is happening is because nowadays the human beings have become so inhuman. They don't talk sweetly at all, and even if they talk sweetly, it is with an ulterior motive. So they are so jarring in their speech that nobody wants to communicate with another human being, even if it is their own kith and king. So that is why they keep pets, and they they what to say, enjoy the reciprocation of love from the pets. Now this is an immediate happiness which they get, but in the long run it is not good. This is what we say, the Upanishad says, it is the two terms they use is shreyas and prayers. Shreyas is you get immediate benefit, but in the long run you suffer, and prayers is you get a sorry it's the opposite. Prayers is you get the immediate benefit, and Shreyas you get benefit after a long time. The initial stages will be of suffering, but later you will be benefited. Whereas prayers, you get immediate benefit, and in the long run you suffer. So this is what happened to Maharaj Bharat. Now there is another story of attachment. Now how you get attached, what becomes your position? We can relate with that story. Even all of us can relate to it, just like how we can relate to Bharat Maharaj's story. We can relate to this story also. There was a person called Kailash, and sage Narada, he visited him once, and he told him, Kailash, I'm going to Vaikuntha, can you come with me? So Kailash says, oh Naraji, my children are very small, they need me, I'll come after some time. So Naraji goes away. After some years, again he comes back, and he asks Kailash, now are you ready to come with me to Vaikuntha? So Kailash says, see, now I've got a grandson, and more of my children, they all depend on me for for advice. So I cannot come now, Naraji, maybe later. Again, Naraji leaves the place and goes. And then after some years, he returns again to Kailash's house and he hears that Kailash is dead. And he feels very sorry. And while he was about to go, he sees a dog barking at the door, and the dog is saying, Naraji, Naraji, I am Kailash. So Naraji is saying, what are you doing in the body of a dog? Okay, never mind, it's not too late. You come with me, I'll take you to Vaikunta. He says, no, my children are so careless, they don't keep the money safely, and I have to protect them from the thieves. That is why I have to be a Naraji. I cannot come now. Please excuse me. So Naraji goes away again. After some years, when he comes, he finds that the dog is also dead. So he is wondering now which body this dog has taken, this Kailash has taken, and pondering in this way, he is walking through the paddy fields at the back of the house when he sees like a large snake coming and in his path. And the snake is telling Naraji, I'm Kailash here, I'm Kailash here. Naraji is saying, what are you doing in the body of a snake? Now, man, it is not too late. You come with me, I will take you to Vaikunta. So he says, no, no, my children, I am happy now that my children, they have put all the money in the bank, but they're so lazy, they get up so late, and all this paddy field, all these elephants come and trample on the crops. Otherwise, the neighbors, they come and steal it. So I have to protect it. That is why I'm going round and round the field and protecting the paddy field from all this. So Narad saw that now this Kailash is fallen from the human form to the dog and now to the snake. He thought, now if I leave him again, he will fall down further. So he immediately claps his hands loudly. And Kailash's sons, they come out. He points out to the snake and he says, sees here, see, there is a big snake in your field. It will harm your children. He tells. So immediately they bring the stick and they start to beat the snake. And the snake is shouting. Kailash is saying, I'm your father, Kailash. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. But the more it hissed, the more they hit, and finally Kailash died. The snake died. So, but while dying, the snake thought of Narad, and the next birth he got a human form of life. So, in the same way, Maharaj Bharat also, he becomes so affectionate. That is just as Kailash was always affectionate towards the family, like how we human beings are always attached to family and children and possessions and all that, and that is why we are not able to leave this body peacefully, because we have forgotten the Supreme Lord. We are attracted to the material things of this world, and we have forgotten the Supreme Lord. So this is how, through these stories, we learn that what mistakes we are doing. So now, Bharat Maharaj, what has happened is, why we say now, see, the spiritual reason for not keeping a deer, for not keeping a pet is one, and there is a material explanation also for that. For now, those who are keeping pets, if we tell them, no, no, you should not keep a pet in your house, they will look at us, with strange eyes, saying you don't care for the animals. It's not that we don't care. A devotee is always, they are compassionate to all living entities, but the animals have got their own place of living. See, even if it is required that a dog is required to guard the house, in certain places a dog is a must. In certain place, because the houses are all distantly placed, and to protect from thieves, you need a dog. You have to be compassionate to the dog, you have to take care of the dog, but you should not get attached to the dog. This is what happened here to Bharat Maharaj. Now, there is a reason why you should not keep a dog in a house. Now, the dog and the cats, they all have fine hair in the body. So you see, when a person is having this pet with them, what they do is they play with the pet just like how they play with a human child. So there is too much of close contact with the animals. So what happens is this fine hair, it enters the body of the human being and it harms the lungs. So if you see any person who suffers from lung problems, they ask them if you have got a pet, and then you keep away from the pet. So this is advice given even by the doctors. So this is a material explanation of not keeping animals with you as a pet. But you be compassionate towards them, because that is also another soul. So you should be compassionate, but you should not be attached to it and keep it with you in your house. So this is one thing we should learn. So this is the material reason. Now the spiritual reason is, we will understand from Bharat Maharaj's life. So he always thought that he is everything for the deer, and he kept on pampering it. So first, actually, a compassionate person, he will be sympathetic to the fallen. To the fallen means one who does not know what is the problem, why is he suffering here, and he keeps what is say getting agitated in this form of life. So one has to be compassionate and introduce God to him and somehow elevate him to devotional service. But Bharat Maharaj, being attached to a deer, he should have realized that the deer is an animal, and how can he elevate an animal? He has to be compassionate to it to save its life, but he cannot elevate an animal to spiritual consciousness. So because of that, eventually he fell. He fell means what? Fell down from spiritual activities. So what happens when you fall down from spiritual activities? Now, Maharaj Bharat, he always walked with the deer, he talked with the deer, he bathed it, he lay down beside it. So much he was attached to the deer that he could not live even for a second without the deer's presence. So when he used to sit and meditate, his mind was always in the thoughts of the deer. Like he would be chanting the names of the Lord, but his mind will be thinking of the deer. So this is how he slowly fell from his devotional service. So actually, when you are in devotional service, you are away from material entanglement. But Maharaj Bharat, he became so attracted to the deer that he forgot his spiritual practices. He slowly started reducing his spiritual practices, and he used to justify his not doing the spiritual practices by saying, "Who is there for this deer? I am the mother, I am the father, I am the brother. The deer has totally surrendered to me, so it is my duty now to take care of the deer. Who will protect it from wild animals?" Though he was an exalted devotee and he knew the Creator is the controller of everything, and whatever happens is in the mercy of the Creator, and we do not have control over anything, still King Bharat, he thought that he was taking care, and the child and the deer was totally dependent on him. And with this feeling, he was always agitated if the deer went out of his sight. While he was worshipping the Supreme Lord, if he found that he could not see the deer within his what to say distant while he's worshipping, if he could not find the deer, then he would get agitated and he will get up and he will go searching for it. And then again when he would sight it, he would be again become peaceful and again sit down to say the prayers. So one day what happened, while he was sitting and praying, the deer wandered off into the forest, and it did not return after sunset. So when it did not return after sunset, King Bharat, he became very worried. He started to think what would have happened to this deer, where would it have gone, which animal would have attacked it, and thinking so he started talking like a madman, searching for it everywhere. He used to look at the moon and he used to say, "Oh moon, please take care of the deer. Please protect it from the wild animals. Your moonlight is soothing to my body. Now my body is burning with separation. At least your soothing moonlight is cooling down my body." This is how he was talking and he was walking. And then when he saw the footprints of the deer on the earth, he is saying, "Oh earth, you are so fortunate to bear the footprints of the deer. And this place which has got the footprints of the deer is so auspicious now. It is auspicious for Brahmanas to perform sacrifices." See, we usually say the footprints of the Lord, where it is auspicious for sacrifice. Instead of the Lord, now he is saying it is the footprints of the deer is very auspicious for performing sacrifice. To that extent, he has become attached to the deer. The person who left his opulence, his beautiful wife, his wonderful children, he got attached to the deer and he fell from his spiritual services. So, thinking about this and talking like a man, and walking in the darkness, he fell down from a huge cliff. And while he was lying there, dying, he could see the deer sitting by his side, exactly like his own son. Actually, the mind of the king was so absorbed in the body of the deer that he felt that the deer was sitting beside him, and thinking of the deer in his last moments, he left the world and this material body. With the result, what happened? He got the body of a deer. This is the danger which I was telling, that if you have a pet and you get attached to it, and in the last moment of your life, if you're thinking of your pet, then from the human form of life, you will fall down to the body of an animal. And in the body of an animal, you cannot elevate yourself, or you cannot think about the Lord, or just as in a human form of life, is given to you to think about Lord and to worship Him and to go back to Him. So the human form of life is considered to be very auspicious, and we have to be very careful to not fall down from the human form of life. When you do a little bhakti, at least the next life you will be guaranteed a human form of life. But if you deviate from bhakti and you think of something else at the time of death, then you will get that body. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, he tells Arjuna, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरम tam tam eva iti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. He says, whatever state of being one remembers while quitting his body, O Arjuna, that state he will attain without fail. So, at the time of death, whatever you think, you will get that form of body. This is what Lord Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita. So we have to be so careful. Like for a practical example, if you say, like now this is about one body to another. Like now, suppose you have a 1 point stop in while traveling in a train. Say from Bombay, a train is leaving Bombay Central, and the destination is Baroda. Another train is leaving Bombay and it's going to Nagpur. Another train leaving from Bombay and it's coming to Chennai. So now suppose these three trains are there and you are a passenger who wants to go to Baroda. But instead of Baroda, you board the train to Chennai and it is a one stop train. So only after you reach Chennai, then you have to take another ticket and then go back again to Baroda. So then so much of time is wasted. You have to come from there all the way. You come up to Chennai and then Chennai you board another train and go to Baroda, go to Bombay and then go to Baroda. So now your journey has become such a long one. So this is a material example. So now the in the spiritual, that is in our own life, when we lose our destination is the abode of the Lord. If we lose that and we think of something else, then immediately our destination is changed. So then again you have to go through so much and then come back. It takes a long time again to actually come to your destination. So you have to be so careful. And Bharat Maharaja, he made this mistake of thinking of the deer. But one advantage was when he acquired the body of the deer, he remembered his past life. Now, when Bharat Maharaj was born as a deer, he immediately left his mother and he came back again to the ashram where he was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Lord. And the benediction given to him by the Lord was he could remember the past birth and he could not forget the incidents, what happened, and he could not forget what foolishness he did. What foolishness the foolishness was to get attached in this material world. So attachment is very dangerous. Now he is saying when he's in the body of a deer, since he could remember his past, he's saying, what a misfortune I have fallen from the path of the self-realized. So I was always constantly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, but then got attached to a deer and now I have fallen. So now we don't remember our past births. Like Bhagavan says, Sarvasya chaham riddhi sannivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I am situated in every living entity's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So, why he makes us forget? Just imagine we have taken so many births, and now finally we have come to the human form of life, and we don't know in what form of life we were, how we lived, how whether we were good people or whether we were bad people, and how we died. Did we die a normal death or very gruesome death? So if we were to remember all this, then when we have taken this human form of life, we would not be able to concentrate on the Supreme Lord. We will be agitated only by thinking of the past births. So the Lord is merciful to us by giving us forgetfulness, but he was merciful to King Bharata by giving him remembrance of his past birth. Why? Because he was such a great devotee, but because of his gross foolishness that he got attached to a deer, the god punished him for a short while. He got a body of a deer and then again he got the body of a human. So here Bharat himself says that due to my personal foolishness, my mind became again attached, this time to a deer. That is, he had performed so much of devotional service. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, God Himself says that even a slight little of devotional service saves you from a lot of a big calamity. What is that calamity? Falling down from a human form of life to a lower species of life. So, here though Bharat had performed so much of pious activities and so much of devotional service, why he got the body of a deer, he himself is saying, due to my personal foolishness. Because he was such an exalted devotee, he knew what would be the a result of being attached to something material, and knowing that he was attached to a deer, and he says, now because of that foolishness, now I am in the body of the deer. So being in the body of a deer, he was so careful that he did not mix with the flock, the deer flock or anything. He came back to the same Pulaha ashram where he had meditated once, and he lived amongst the great exalted devotees over there who are always constantly chanting the names of the Lord, and who are always talking of Krishna Katha, and he used to live barely on leaves and whatever was available in the forest. And he always concentrated, his thoughts were always on the lotus feet of the Lord. And when the time of death came, he concentrated on the lotus feet of the Lord, and he said that, oh Lord, let me always remember your lotus feet, and let me always render devotional service to you. Saying this, he gave up the body of a deer. So now here, what is the life lesson? Association is very meaningful. King Bharat, he went alone to the forest, and he was alone over there, and that was the reason for his fall down. If he was in the association of devotees, then they will always take shelter. They will always protect you, because the devotees are always there to guide you when you fall. So you should be in the association of devotees. You should not do spiritual practice alone. There are a lot of chances of falling down. Now, who is a devotee? A devotee is a person who is always thinking about the Lord, who is always preaching about the Lord, and who is always worshipping the Lord. He is always talking about Krishna Katha. So that is a devotee. And such a person only can elevate a person who is suffering in this material world. They can bring you to Krishna consciousness. So now, after he gave up the body of a deer, he took birth in a Brahmana family. Now, this Brahmana was a descendant of Angira, and he was very well versed in all the Vedas. He was very kind, gentle, and a very nice person. This Brahmana. He had two wives. One wife, the first wife, she had 9 sons who were all equally qualified Brahmanas, and the second wife, she had twin children. One was Jada, and the other one was a girl. Now, Jada, though he was born again as a human being, he could remember the life of the deer and of king. And when he was a king, he remembered all his past life. So, though he was in the body of a Brahmana, he was so afraid of the relatives and friends who were not devotees. Why? Because again, he was scared that he might fall down. So, what he did, he is to always behave as though he is dumb, deaf, dull. He used to behave like that. Though actually, he was a self realized person. He thought that if he acted to be dull and blind and deaf, then in this way he can save himself from bad association. Now, his father, he was a very kind person and very attached to Jad Bharat, and he tried several ways to teach him many things. He tried to teach him cleanliness, he tried to teach him Gayatri Mantra, and then when he found that, okay, this Bharat is not fit for Grahastha ashram, he did all the purificatory processes fit for a Brahmacharya, and still he continued to teach Jad Bharat. He always thought that no, one day he will preach the Vedas, and he continued to teach. But Jad Bharat, he always pretended as though he could not understand anything, and as though he was mad. Being attached to this little boy, the Brahmana forgot that he is also going to die. Now, in the Mahabharata, we have a story that is death comes suddenly, and everybody should be prepared for it. But we always think that everybody else dies, but not me. That is the same story which comes in Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, when they were staying, the Pandavas were staying in the Dvaitavana forest, a Brahmin came and approached and said that the uh, wood which is there for igniting fire in the house was carried away by the deer. Again, another deer. The deer again a problem over there. The deer had in its horns, the firewood had got entangled, and he says that I want those firewood because I have to make a fire in the house. So you please help me by catching the deer. So these five brothers, they chase the deer, but the deer disappears from their sight, and they are so dejected and tired and thirsty that they sit down. And Nakul says, "I can see some lake over here. I'll bring some water for you all." And he goes there. When he is about to drink the water, he hears a voice saying that I am the owner of this lake, and you're not supposed to drink water without answering my questions. So Nakul, he just ignored it, and he drank, and he fell down dead. The same way it was followed by Sadev, Arjun, Bhim, and when Yudhishthir saw that all his four brothers have not returned at all, when he goes there and he finds that all his brothers were dead, he was totally shocked. And then he thought, okay, let me drink some water and then think. At that time, he heard the same voice again saying that no, you're not supposed to drink water until you answer my questions. I am the person who have killed your brothers. So he says, "Who are you? You must be so strong that you have killed my brothers who cannot be killed by anyone. You have killed them. So please manifest yourself." So the Yaksha manifests himself and he says that you answer my question, I'll allow you to drink water. So Yudhishthira says, okay, to the best of my ability, I will answer. So he asks him several questions, and I will tell you only the one question which is pertinent to this story. So he asks, what is the most wonderful thing in this world? So Yudhishthir says, day after day, there enter into the temple of death countless lives. Looking on this spectacle, the rest of them, those who remain, believe themselves to be permanent, immortal. Can anything be more wonderful than this? That is, we are seeing death around us all the time, but yet what we think is we think that we are not going to die, we are immortal, and we make plans for so many years. So that is the most wonderful thing, that even though we know that death is inevitable, even though though death is all around us, we think that we are immortal. So that is what Yudhishthira says. And here, this Brahmanas also thinking that being so attached to his son Jad Bharat, he also forgot that death is going to come upon him at any moment. So he died, and his young wife, she entrusted Jad Bharat and her daughter to the elder co-wife, and she also entered the funeral pyre along with Jad Bharat's father. After Jad Bharat's father died, the brothers, they tried to educate him, but they found that they could not, and they considered him to be dull and brainless, and they abandoned him. Abandoned him means they would not give him food unless and until he did some work for them. If they would give any sort of food, rotten food or little food or no food at times, and only if he worked, they would give them food. And he was always insulted and neglected by everybody there. But Jad Bharat, he never thought about that. He thought all his past karmas are acting on him, and he never paid much attention to it. So one day, what happens is, these brothers, they ask him to watch the paddy field, so from to protect them from the wild pigs and the wild deer. So Jad Bharat goes to the paddy field and he sits on an elevated platform to watch over the animals. At that time, what happens is, the same place there was a dacoit king who, for obtaining a son, was worshipping goddess Kali, and he wanted to offer in sacrifice a dull man. So he had already captured also one dull man, but what happened was that man, he escaped the middle of the night. So he sent his people everywhere. Everywhere he sent them, and he asked them to search for that man and bring them back. These men, the dacoits men, he went. They searched everywhere and they found Jad Bharat sitting on the elevated place. And they say, "Oh yeah, this is a strong person sitting over here. He would be the right man for sacrifice." And they bound him and dragged him to the temple of goddess Kali. Now, Jad Bharat was a very strong person. He could have very well freed himself, but he just thought everything is in the hands of the Lord. All this is due to his past karma, and he did not protest at all. And in their concocted way of worship, they gave him a bath and they fed him sumptuously. Then they anointed him in sandalwood. And they put a lot of garlands and jewelry over him, and they made to sit him in front of the deity of Kali. Now, when a devotee of the Supreme Lord is in danger, the Supreme Lord always descends and protects. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says, "No, uh, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam." So he comes to protect the devotees and annihilate the demons. So through Kali, the Lord protected Jad Bharat, because Jad Bharat was such a elevated devotee that even Goddess Kali could not bear the thought of him being killed. And when the dacoit priest, he raised the sword to cut off Jad Bharat's head, the deity, she came out from the deity, burst the deity of goddess Kali burst open, and she came out and grabbed the sword from the dacoit priest's hand and cut off everybody's heads. So, what lesson do we learn from this? And Jad Bharat, from there, he quietly walked away after he saw that the dacoits were being killed. He just walked away from that. So, the life lessons is, the devotees who always take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord are always protected by the Supreme Lord. That's what I said. Paritranaya Sadhunam, who carries his disc and acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. Now, after some time, what happens? A ruler from Sindhu and Sauvira. His name was King Rahuguna. He was going to Kapila Ashram. Now, the kings they go in search of knowledge to the sages to get knowledge from the sages. So, in the same way, Rahuguna he was traveling to Kapila Ashrama. And but on the way, what happened when they reached the lake of Ikshumati? What happened was one palanquin carrier became sick, and they had to look for another palanquin carrier. So they were searching everywhere for that, and they found that Jadabharata was sitting by the side of the road, and they said, "Okay, this person is very stout and well built. He is fit enough to carry heavy burdens, so we will take him and make him the fourth person to carry the palanquin." So Jadbharat he carried the palanquin, but what happened is when he was carrying the palanquin and walking, he always paused to look if there was any ant because he was a devotee and a very compassionate person. He was compassionate to each and every living entity. So ants are living entities. So he always paused at each place to see that he should not step over the ant. He used to pause and then he used to walk. He used to pause and walk. So he could not keep up with the rest of the palanquin carriers. With the result, what used to happen? There was a jolt in the palanquin, and the king got very annoyed and he just warned the palanquin carriers that you carry properly. He says so the others they get scared that they would be beheaded by the king. So they say, no, we are not at fault. It is the new person who has come. He is not carrying it properly. He is not able to walk quickly. They say like that. So then again, when they resume walking, again Jad Bharat the same way he's pausing and walking, and now the king becomes so angry that he shouts at him. He says, "You rascal! You are not listening to my orders. You are defying my orders. You know I can punish you just like Yamraj punishes sinful persons. I will punish you in the same way. You have a body which is, I think you have a body which is very weak and you're not able to carry the palanquin." He says this. So for the first time in Bharat Maharaj's life, that is Jad Bharat, for the first time he spoke. Probably he spoke this to elevate the materialistic king Rahuguna. He says, yes, you are right that this is the body which is carrying the body is carrying the palanquin. It is not I, the soul, which is not which is carrying the palanquin. And when you say it, the body is strong. You said that my body is weak. So you mean to say about this material body because a learned person will never say that the soul is weak. So in this manner, and he says, today you are the king and I am the servant. Tomorrow I may the our roles may be reversed. So saying this again after that, again he starts to walk. But Rahuguna, he understands that behind this person who looks a very dirty and mad man, behind this person there is some great realized soul, and what he does, he immediately descends from the palanquin and falls at Jad Bharat's feet because he understands that Jad Bharat is very knowledgeable. So he wants to understand the deep meaning of the philosophical words used by Jad Bharat. So before that, we'll say in this godless civilization, if a president engages people somehow or other in devotional service, or the awakening of Krishna consciousness, he renders the very best service to the citizens. That is, if the head of the state, if he is a devotee of the Lord, like how King Bharat, when he was the king, and he used to execute all devotional service, and so his citizens also followed the same. So, in the same way, if the head of any country or head of any state, if they engage people in devotional service, then he is doing the best service to the citizens. Like now, we talk about violence. Now, when we say about violence, generally, what do we think? We think that not inflicting harm on any other living entity. But Prabhupada, when he's because non-violence is a qualification of a devotee. But Prabhupada, he gave in his explanation in the purport, he has given that non-violence is when you give Krishna conscious to a person. That is, when you teach devotional service to a person, then he is saved from the cycle of birth and death. So that is actually non-violence because you are saving him from going down to the different species of life. There are 84 lakh species of life as mentioned in the Padma Puran. So he's saying by teaching them devotional service, you are helping them from not falling down further. So that is non-violence. So you have to teach devotional service to any person whom you see, you have to tell them about Krishna consciousness so they don't fall down from the human form of life, and that is the real meaning of non-violence. And in this godless civilization, the present civilization, this is required all the more. So now Bharat, he instructs King Rahuguna, that is because Rahuguna, he has asked him to for the details, that is he wants to clarify what Maharaj. So he is telling him material happiness is insignificant. Why it is insignificant? Because this material world is not permanent, and therefore this happiness is also not permanent. Bondage and liberation are caused by the mind. So actually mind is a culprit. Bondage and liberation. Why? Because the mind, it is under the influence of the three modes, and that is why we connect everything with this bodily relationship, whereas the soul is free from all this, but the mind thinks that this is the body, I am connected with the body to each and everything, and that is why there is bondage, and there is no liberation. But a liberated soul sees things vividly. A liberated soul understands that he is not this body. Like in fact, when Rahuguna, he was telling uh, Jad Bharat that I will beat you up, Jad Bharat says, "What is the use of beating me up? It is like beating a dead horse. Like if an animal is dead and you keep beating it, what is the use?" And he says, "You call me a madman. So by beating a madman, does his madness get cured? So what do you use by beating a madman?" So already, and he says, "You think I'm a madman, you think I'm this, but I'm actually a self-realized soul. So even if you think I'm mad, so then by beating me, will you be able to cure me of the madness?" So a liberated soul sees the things vividly, that all what he is suffering in this material world is due to the past misdeeds, and then how he has to get out of this, and how by devotional service he can go to God. So the mind is conquered by devotional service. Now devotional service is what? Doing service to the Lord with great love. It's not that okay, there are many people saying, no, I have to do seva, I have to do service, I have to do service. So if you're going to do it mechanically, that is not devotional service. Devotional service is when you are doing service, like how Mother Yashoda, she took care of Krishna. She feared for Krishna, though Krishna was the supreme Lord. She feared for him, she cared for him, she fed him. How much love she gave him without expecting anything in return. That is pure devotional service. So that is the love. With that love, we have to do service to the supreme Lord. So now in this, he is saying this uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. Now the mind is like a mad elephant. It is just, it runs wild here and there. So now our conditioned souls, we have given the power of attorney to our mind for God alone knows how many births. The mind has been controlling us. So we should control the mind. The mind should not control us. We should control the mind. So when the mind is controlling us, the intelligence is lost, and then naturally again and again you are entangled in this material world. So he's saying if one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful, and it will become victorious. For example, a simple example I can give you: like in the morning, you have to get up at 4 o'clock to do your sadhana, but then you feel okay, it's only 4 now. Let me get up after 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So the mind is telling you, okay, 5 minutes. One day if you get up 5 minutes late, it doesn't matter, you know. So the mind is instructing you to do this. And if you come under the influence of the mind, you'll say, okay, I'll get up at 5. Then 4:05. Then next day it'll be 4:15. So next day it'll be 4:30. So the mind is slowly taking control over you. So you must neglect the mind. You must not allow the mind to control you. You must neglect it, because what happens is it covers the constitutional position of the soul. Then you forget that you are the soul and not this body, and you keep listening to the mind, and then what happens? You suffer. So please, he's telling, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the supreme personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. Now even Krishna tells the same thing to Arjuna. He says you have to control your mind. By controlling your mind, you should focus on me. So for that, Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna, pramati balavadridam, tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. That is, he's saying the mind is so restless. Pramati means it is turbulent. Balavad, it is so strong. Dridam, it is obstinate. So, how can I control this restless mind and to subdue this? It is more difficult than Vayu. Vayu is wind. He's saying it is even easy to subdue the wind, but I cannot subdue my mind. But then for that, Bhagavan he replies, Asamshayam Mahabaho, undoubtedly, O mighty armed one, Mano Durni Graham Chalam, Abhyasena to Kaunteya, Vairagena cha Grihyate. He's saying undoubtedly it is very difficult to curb the restless mind, Arjuna, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So for everything, it is practice. So for so many years, we have given the control to the mind. So naturally, it will take some time to shift our consciousness from control from coming under the control of the mind and now to control the mind. There should be a slight shift in the consciousness. So it is by practice you can achieve it, he's saying. See, even in this material world, for whatever you want to achieve, you have to practice. Like even for maths, you keep practicing and then you master the subject. So in the same way, the mind has to be controlled by practice. And how can that be done? It can be done by Nama Sankirtan. Why? Because Nama Sankirtan, it will help us neglect the order of the uncontrolled mind and it will fill it with Krishna's grace. So Nama Sankirtan is very, very, very important. And for Kali Yuga, Nama Sankirtan is a Yuga Dharma. So we have to always chant the names of the Lord. And if you have association of many devotees and chanting along with them, that all the more very good. So then, what also King Bharat he says that this materialist existence is like a forest. It is like a forest. See, this mind, it has got all the wild animals, or even this world has got all the wild animals. In the mind, what enemies we have? We have enemies like lust, greed, anger. Then you have madness. Then you have attachment. All these are the lions and tigers of the mind. So all this has to be curbed. And you have this, and this material world he's saying is like a forest. Why? Because you have lions, tigers in the form of human beings, lions, tigers, snakes, jackals in the form of human beings who are very envious. And envy is the root cause for all the problems in this material world. Envy is the main problem for the problems of this material world. Because of envy, there is greed, there is pride, there is what to say, avengeful thoughts. So like people who are always envious, they will always you try, like whether you are a materialistic person, or sorry, whether you are a devotee or a non-devotee, you try to do some good somewhere, you do some good deed somewhere, then you will see the reaction of so many people who are against you, even though they do not know you well, they will talk about you, they will talk ill about you, they will spread rumors about you, because they may not have the good intention of doing good for others. So they, when they someone else does, they think that these people are trying to show off and they're trying to do something like that, so they try to blaspheme them and they try to destroy them, and they speak of so many uncouth things about them, that like how you can see even in the Mahabharata, Yudhishthir was such a person who followed dharma, but still Duryodhan was always jealous of him. Yudhishthir was never jealous of him. In fact, he was called Achata Shatru, means the one who had no enemy. But Duryodhan always thought of Yudhishthir as his enemy, and he always was cooking up some plan to, attack him or destroy him, or to blaspheme him, or to take things away from him. He was trying so many things. So this is the character of an envious person, and this world is full of such people only. So this materialist world is like forest, because you have animals in the form of human beings, you have animals who are very envious and they cannot stand the good things done by devotees or whoever. So Jad Bharat, though he was a true Vaishnava, and though King Rahuguna, he blasphemed him, he shouted at him, and he did so many things, still he did not curse back. He in fact thought that this king, he requires spiritual knowledge, and that is why he opened his mouth for the first time to instruct King Rahuguna. So the path indicated by Jadbharata is like the path followed by Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, and the ordinary kings are just like flies. Flies cannot follow the path of Garud, and to date, none of the great kings and victorious leaders could follow the path of devotional service, not even mentally, because they are still so attached to this material body that they cannot follow the devotional service completely. So, by hearing this from Jad Bharat, Maharaj Raghugana, he revived his Krishna consciousness and he benefited from Jad Bharat's association. So, always when you associate with a devotee, you are elevated. So, that is the benefit of association of a Vaishnava or a pure devotee. So, he could understand that his illusion was over. What was the illusion? He always thought that this body, that I am the king. So, he gave importance to the body and not to the soul. So his illusion was over and he begged pardon from Jad Bharat for his misbehavior. After this, Jad Bharat began to wander all over the earth just as before. So he was free to wander now. Then King Rahuguna of the state of Savira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul and he gave up the bodily conception completely. Whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. Why? Because the devotee helps the person understand the true nature of this material world. Now the Falasruti. If one submissively hears and chants about the all auspicious Maharaj Bharat, one's lifespan and material opulences certainly increase. Now this is a material benefit. One can become very famous and easily attain promotion to the heavenly planets or attain liberation by merging into the existence of Lord. This is also material. Promotion to the heavenly planets is also material. Whatever one desires, one can be attained simply by hearing, chanting, and glorifying the activities of Maharaj Bharat. In this way, one can fulfill all his material and spiritual desires. See, the Lord always tells that whatever you want, whether you want anything material also, you come to me. I will give you material benediction at the same time, I will give you spiritual knowledge by which your material desires will reduce. So that is why we read all the stories of the Lord as well as his devotees, and through that we learn many lessons. So now from the life of Maharaj Bharat, what we have to learn is attachment is very dangerous. There is a very fine line between attachment and love. That is, you now people will say, so now how can we not love our children? Yes, you can love your children, but you should not be attached. You should teach your children Krishna consciousness. You should learn them. You should teach them to be independent. Teach them to do things on their own. Teach them to worship the Lord sincerely, and you should not like how today's parents they want that their children should be dependent on them for everything. In fact, it is only the human form of life which makes the children dependent on us, whereas other animals and birds, you see, they allow their children to fly away once they are able to take care of themselves. So that should be the case, but always Krishna consciousness should be instilled in the children. Definitely, when they are children, they will imbibe it very easily. Now, even at this stage, now when we are listening to this and listening to the Bhagavatam stories, or if we chant Bhagavad Gita, or we chant the Lord's holy names, and we are sincerely going into devotional service, at that time, till then, you won't find many people advising you. But once you start your devotional service, you will see so many people coming to tell you, Are, this is your age to do all this devotional service. No, 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 this is not the time. You still have time. You can enjoy your life now. You can learn about this later. Learn about this when you cannot sit to hold the book, when your eyesight becomes weak, when you're not able to hear, when you're not able to speak. At that time, what will you hear or listen? How can you listen to Krishna Katha if you are not able to hear? How can you look at the beautiful face of the deity of the Lord if you cannot see? So as age comes, all the senses they start becoming very poor. Yeah, they are not able to function properly. So then how will you do devotional service? Even to listen to the Katha of the Lord, you need that devotion and that sincerity. If you have not cultivated as a child, at old age it is very difficult to come. If you are used to enjoying the material life, then even at old age you will think of enjoying material life. Now Prahalad Maharaj, at the womb, he started to listen about the Lord, so there is no age for listening to the stories of the Lord or for doing devotional service. The only way to get out of this material world is to do devotional service. And we have got the stories of many young devotees who have become. We also heard about Dhruva Maharaj, who went to the forest at the age of 5 and he became self realized. So there is no such age that you should not do this now or that now. For material things, one is very enthusiastic to do everything. But when it comes to spiritual life, at time they say, oh, no, 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 this is not the age, later, later, like how Kailash said later, later, then we will lose our destination. So we have to be very careful. Learn this from Bharat Maharaj's story that you have to be very careful. Use this time. If you have not started now, start now itself. Start chanting the names of the Lord. Have prasadam every day. And slowly, slowly, you will see that devotional service is very simple. It is not difficult at all. When you see outside, whenever you see the creation of the Lord, when you see the sun and the moon of the Lord, you should think that this is the energy of the Lord. He is giving his light through the sun and the moon, and then all this nature, this beautiful nature around us, it should remind us of the Lord. He says rasoham apsu kaunteya, means I am the taste in water. He says punyo gandham prithivyam cha, I am the fragrance of the earth. So when all this he's saying, that is all his energy is present in the entire world. So if you are not able to think of the Lord, at least when you see his energies, you think of him. So slowly, slowly you will see that you're always thinking of him, and always be grateful to him. And please see that there is a difference between attachment and love. Love is you love a person not to such an extent that you are paralyzed with your feelings for that person. Attachment is that, like an example I can give, if your child is getting up late and you say, okay, now mind, let the child get up late. So that is attachment. But if you love the child, you will wake up the child early and ask him to say the names of the Lord, pray, say the prayers and do his activities early. You will teach him how he should lead a disciplined life. That is love. So pampering is not love. Pampering is attachment. So one should understand this difference and lead the life accordingly. So now, Bhagavad Gita, this month you get at a discounted rate. You can call at this number and you can find out the details. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada, because of whom we can understand this philosophy of life. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Hare Krishna.